Go.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to day 2 of the 12 days of Christmas. So excited for everybody to join us this evening. And the numbers are climbing fast. And I will say right off the bat, I know that we've got a really varied audience with us today. Some of you might not even know who I am, which is fine, but it's not about me tonight. I'm really, really excited to be able to have Kevin and Ray with us from Needles at the Ready podcast. Now, of course, this is like take 2, I feel like, because I tried to get them on last year. And again, this year, people are getting hit with the flu, with COVID. So I don't know about you guys, but I know this time, especially when I was doing some shopping and some last minute things, I was like, don't breathe on me, anybody. Because myself included, the first night of the 12 days of Christmas last year, I had to cancel. So I am glad that we are all here, safe and sound, healthy, and to be able to bring you guys hopefully a great program. For those of you guys that are new to the 12 days of Christmas, thank you so much for joining. This was sort of my silly little project, is what I call it, 2 years ago, when I wanted to find something or some way for me to just slow down a little bit and enjoy what the season is all about. I think too many of us are either making, trying to get all of our gifts done, or those of us that handle retail, trying to do all of that. And then next thing you know, it's like 3 days before Christmas. Yes, I know I could start in November, but if you know me, you know that's not happening. So, this for me was just something to bring to the community. And I was really, really surprised to find the response, and also to find for so many people, we forget, right? Like sometimes people need something to lift their spirits. Not everybody has a great time around the holidays. Sometimes people maybe can't travel to visit their family, or maybe they don't have a lot of family. So I've just been overwhelmed by the response of people joining in on this program. The fun part for me is to invite a variety of guests. Some of them are what I call industry, people within our textiles, knitting, crocheting, and then some of them are non-industry. They're part of my industry, which is the animal world, but maybe not necessarily knitters, crocheters. And believe it or not, sometimes that's the ones that I think people find the most fun, because it's right, learning about new people and new things, because we're all just creative and curious. And that's my goal to bring to you, is awareness for just all the different kinds of people that are out there. Now, of course, as I've built out this program every year, I try to add a little bit to it. So we've gotten a lot more fun things that we've added. So every night we do have, now these guys are going to pick a number. And what I said is, I'm going to have to figure something out, because as our audience grows, if you guys pick which is okay, but if you pick 40, we're going to be here scrolling, because I don't have any fancy way. And I just kind of look down my participant list, but true is true. That's how we do it. So we'll do that at the end of the program, because you guys got to hang in for however long it is. And that one, you do have to be here in order to win. And you get a $20 store credit to shop with us here at Life. Now, the other thing we're going to be doing, so you're going to want to listen in, is that somewhere throughout this program of talking with these two gentlemen, I'm going to come up with a trivia question. So on the 6th, which is our wrap-up party, any of the guests are invited to join us. But of course, all of the attendees, again, you got to be there to win. I'm going to try to find a trivia question that's going to stump somebody. So you've got to really listen in. And then that's a tangible gift that we will send you to just say thanks for playing along. Now, with all of that said, the other fun thing that we have that I want to tell everybody off the bat is something that has evolved over now to the 3rd year, is this really amazing Keepsake Basket. Now, where I got this idea from is, if you don't know, I have a 17-acre, fully diversified fiber farm. We have 2 open house events throughout the year, and a lot of my followers kind of get jealous with all of the really cool raffle baskets that we get, things that are donated from friends and industry. And in order to be involved in that, it's you shop in the store, and for every $10 you spend, you get a ticket. And then you get to put that in for the basket of your choice. So after hearing so many people that are never going to be able to get to my farm, but you guys, we're going to get you to the farm. We're going to talk about that. We decided to create a keepsake basket for this program. So yes, undoubtedly, the way to get in on it is to shop over these next 12 days, and a lot of great things that we dropped even already last night. And so for every $10, you get a ticket, and then that goes in for the basket. So off the top, I do want to, I've got to find, yeah, we'll have to talk about it a little bit more, but off the top, these guys generously sent 2 skeins of yarn, and then there's also 2 enamel pins, and yeah, I wasn't sure if that one was a sticker, but 2 enamel pins that are part of the Keepsake Basket. And there's something from each of my guests, which is really kind of fun. So those are just some housekeeping things that for those of you that are new, I want you to keep in mind. I do have a moderator. Erin Carnes is generous enough to jump in and be part of the chat and answer any questions, because I also don't really focus on the chat, but I want to see you guys chatting back and forth, because that's what this community is all about. But I'm here, I focus on my guests, and most of the time I forget you guys are even here. So I hope that you enjoy the program that we have for you. The last thing I don't want to forget, especially because these 2 generously, without even any prompting, promote my skincare all the time. And so throughout the 12 days of Christmas, not because they were my guests, but because we do it anyway, anybody can get 50% off our skincare up until the last day, which is January 6th. But there is a code for that, because I only want it for my TDOC people. So when you shop, you need to make sure that you use the code TDOC 2450, right? 12 days of Christmas, TDOC 24, and then 50 for 50% off. So all of our skincare is 50% off. Anything else is full value. And anytime you shop, you just let us know you're part of TDOC, and those tickets go into the basket. So I will repeat some of this throughout. Erin will be nice enough to drop it in the chat, but I know we've got a lot of new people with us for this program. So I just wanted to make sure you guys know how all of this works. And with that, we are going to utilize the chat a little bit. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on, I'm already way behind. So, we'll get to it, Dawn. We'll get to it. I'm getting haggled already. People want to see things up close. We're just starting introductions. Although we're going to talk about that, because dying, of course, is some of what we're going to talk about as well. So without further ado, I'd be interested to see if anybody does not know who these 2 gentlemen are. Of course, I do know who they are, but I don't honestly know a lot about them. I live in my own little farm bubble, and purposely, I told them I was not prepping for tonight. And who knows what I'm going to ask? Who knows where it's going to go? Some of it's going to be like business-related stuff. Most of it's just going to probably be fun and chit-chatting. So I hope even if you feel like you know Kevin and Ray, maybe you learn a few new things about them as well. So with that, I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves in any way you like to. When somebody's like, who the hell are you? What do you say? Oh, did you guys? Oh, sorry about that.
It's completely our fault. Our bird is having the time of his life right now, and I didn't want him to cut you off when you were going through yours.
He gets very loud.
He gets very excited.
Yeah, so we just muted. So
Descriptions are totally fine.
all right, so I'm Kevin.
I'm Ray. It's nice to meet you all. For those who don't know, we're
married, and
yeah.
we live in Connecticut.
Yep.
And what was it? I think we're going on 5 years now.
I can't believe it's been
right. So 5 years ago in January, we
Wait,
decided
5 years of podcasting, 5 years of marriage.
Oh, marriage?
We've been together for 20.
We've been together for 24 years.
Yes.
24 years. It'll be 25 next year. And then we
should do something.
We do all the time. We go to so many fiber events. And then we've been podcasting it'll be 5 years next month.
Yeah. It started with Kevin.
Yes.
Looking for like community. And he was the only one knitting at the time. I wasn't knitting.
I was just going to ask that. So Kevin was the knitter first. You were not knitting at all.
No, I was crocheting poorly, but I was crocheting. And Kevin decided that he wanted to kind of put himself out there. He started watching some other podcasts and kind of felt a click, right, with the community.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes if you don't know any knitters to find knitters to knit with or to like get information from. So randomly, I started watching other YouTube channels and got so much information from them, whether it was about like new patterns, new designers, yarn. Like I didn't know what indie dyed yarn was. Like I did stuff at my local yarn store and they had more like commercial stuff, you know, like your typical Brooklyn tweeds and Barocco and things like that. But I didn't know about indie dyed yarn or anything like that.
Now, can
So
I ask, when you guys got together the 20 years ago, were you already knitting then?
no, I started knitting, I think it was 20, if I'm not mistaken, I think I created my Ravelry page on like 2013 or it was either 2013 or yeah, I think 2013 and it was from a book. Like I was reading this book series and I hate that you can't get it anymore. The author stopped releasing it. Like they're under a different pen name now. But one of the books that I read, the entire community, it was children, you know, up to husband and wives, everybody in between knitting. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I remembered as a child, my grandfather was a knitter and crocheter. So everything my grandmother owned, like sweater wise, he had made her, and all the blankets in the house he had crocheted. So he attempted to teach me. And I think the furthest I got was doing a crochet chain. And I couldn't, like needles, he had, you know, your long 2 foot
I was just
aluminum needles, you know, like those long things. I couldn't figure out how to use them. And I read this book and immediately I put it down and I went to Walmart and I grabbed a skein of super bulky white yarn with tinsel in it.
Mhm.
And
I love
some,
that you still remember that.
my friend still has the
She
scarf.
still
She
has the
wears it
scarf.
every winter.
Yeah.
And long aluminum needles. And I went home on YouTube and I just searched how to knit and purl. And that's just what I did for the first scarf. I was like, I'm gonna knit this row, or I'm gonna purl this row, or I'm gonna do both. And then it was when our first niece was born and my father was going through chemo, that it like the knitting bug just kind of bit me because I wanted to make stuff for our niece. And then I needed something to do while I was sitting with my father going through chemo. Like I needed something to keep my hands busy for that hour, you know, 1 day a week. And after that, it just kind of took off and I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Now,
And
where did you jump in?
so I tried when Kevin did. I tried, I can't even tell you how many times, and it didn't work for me at all. So I gave up. And what really started me knitting was right before he podcasted. As we started as we started watching some of the podcasts, which by the way, I thought knitting podcasts were the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I didn't understand them. I was like, he was hysterical. I would come downstairs or I'd go up to bed and I'd hear him laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? He's like, I'm watching these podcasts. And would look and they're not even knitting. Like they're just, like I said, so they're just, what are they doing? They're just talking about their knitting. Like I don't get it. It didn't make sense to me. And then it wasn't until I think we were watching the Grocery Girls where I found it was really funny. And then I wanted to like try it again because he was really starting to become more prolific at it. And I was very obsessed with like I want to make a pair of socks,
Yes,
right?
Oh my gosh, as your first
So
project?
my first project was a hat. My second
Okay,
project was socks, I
wow.
think. Yeah.
probably.
Um, but yeah, and I picked it up on circular needles, not the straight needles, and it was just amazing. Like I loved it. I remember like it was a very simple hat pattern, but I remember texting Kevin like pictures because I was working a different schedule at the time, so I was off while he was at work, and I would send a picture of, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. Like I'm doing decreases. What? Like I got wish me luck, I think, or something. But I'll remember, I'll never forget that. But then it's just ever since, like I can't, I don't think I've gone a day without knitting. Maybe 2 days in the past.
So now, flash forward, who knits more?
I would say he probably does.
Maybe me.
For instance, right now, as we're talking to you, I don't knit because I feel like it takes my attention away. But Ray can do that. Like he can knit.
I feel like it focuses me more, especially like in a conversation like this, you know?
So he will do it more than I do for sure.
Okay. I was just curious. Yeah, back in the day, because for me, I don't have the same time that I used to, but I do have pictures to prove. Back in the beginning, I was actually a spinner first, then I was a knitter, and spent a lot more time in the beginning, which was great because it just gave me a better appreciation. For me, I came from the animal to the like yarn industry, if you will, where a lot of people will go in the other direction. So I had a lot to learn if you think you had a lot to learn. But now what I find, I mean, at least then when I was working, kind of like dividing what I do and then something else, to knit to keep me focused, it was more to keep me awake or to keep me
Yeah.
busy. So like I'll find I can't do it really if I'm talking like you can, which is amazing, but to keep your hands moving, right? Like if I wanted to sit down and watch a TV program or a movie, or back in the day when I was stuck in meetings, then I would do it for that reason, just to stay focused because, you otherwise don't want to be there, right? So
Mhm.
so that's interesting though that you can do it. And I love, now can you knit? And I know so many people can. I get that this is not that amazing, but it's amazing to me. Are you at a place where you can knit without looking?
Yes, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I can only knit in the round.
okay.
Knit stitches in the round. That's all.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
can't do
still
anything.
something because that still turns into a shit show for me if I try to.
Yeah,
Not like
yeah.
you want to look all cool and like when you're vending and you're in a booth and you're trying to do something simple and then you're just like, oh bloody, it's just all messed up now. So and then you just put it down because you got to fix it.
Now I can't always do that. We thought it would be a good idea to go through our and like take count of all of our whips going into the new year, like what are still like on our needles. And going through the projects, I just had to take out quite a bit of a sock I was working on during our niece's recital like months ago because I must have dropped stitches and I just decided that it would be smart to keep going, which was not a good idea. So I'm not always successful at knitting or without looking, but
Well, hey, it's all right.
yeah.
And like you said, maybe sometimes in the moment you just got to keep going to
Mhm.
save face. You're like, we're just going to keep doing
We're
this,
just gonna keep going. Yeah,
Yeah,
I need something to
exactly.
do with my hands, which
Because
you typically Yeah, you'll typically find me with more than one project that I bring with me because if I make a mistake, I want to keep knitting on something. So I always have a backup to my backup.
but that's brilliant. So you guys decided to start the podcast. What was your whole idea? Again, we were saying kind of before we officially started, I will watch a couple, but what I find is difficult for me, like I was saying to you guys, my idle time, if you will, is driving, which I do a lot of. And I was Kimberly McAlinden, who I do a lot of work with. She was my guest last night. I was trying to catch up on her Vlogmas on a recent, third, fourth trip to upstate New York. And at the point in time in which I kind of like swerved off the road a little bit, I was like, all right, I gotta shut down. I was trying to show my girl love, I was trying to catch up and binge watch, everything that she's making the commitment to doing. And I'm like, no, this isn't working well. But I'm also a lot of times when I'm out feeding the animals, I always, of course, I'm in tune to the farm, but I like to have something in my ear. And truly, admittedly, I've turned on yours, just because I also maybe more for not really research, but just to see what different people are doing. Is there anything I can bring different to the platform? And as I said to you guys before we officially started, I just find it difficult because then I want to stop and I want to
Yep.
see what you guys are talking about. And of course, that is the beauty of most podcasts that are related to knitting and makers. But yeah, it doesn't work when you've got llamas looking at you like, what are you doing? Feed me.
It also probably doesn't help that our episodes are like 2 hours
Yeah.
long because we
But
can't shut up half the time.
oh,
So
please. I think was one of the early ones that figured out that you could only, at least back in the day, I haven't tested it recently, you can only do Instagram Live for an hour because I
Oh,
accomplished it. Yeah,
I didn't know
they're
that.
like,
I didn't know.
oh. Now it might have changed, but back when I first started doing Instagram Live, I'll just go on and on and on and just talk. And of course, nobody's talking back to you. And yeah, after an hour, they're like, you're done here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I the reason that I wanted to start it is that I love watching them, But when when I decided to start it, there were very few male podcasters,
Mhm.
and it was that same thing as getting a different perspective. Like, I didn't know what else to knit. Like it, I didn't know, it wasn't the, a love note or a lacy sweater or, or things like that. I couldn't find things that I would knit. I
Mhm.
didn't find people who were showing that.
Yeah.
And and yes, patterns can be made for all body
Yeah.
types and colors don't have a gender, but also I have a different color palette than other people. So not seeing that a
Yeah.
palette that I like constantly represented on YouTube. So those types of things, I just thought it would be fun to have another perspective.
Yeah.
And even making some of these patterns that I did see that maybe I wouldn't wear in colors that I like, because it does change the way it looks a little bit. So that really was the reason to start it.
And he
I'm
started by himself.
laughing. I have to tell you, even though this is why I try not to pay attention to the chat, because Julie, and I know who that is, she just posted, she's like, I could be here till midnight listening to the banter between these three. Do not challenge us, because I could
We've
as
got
well.
plenty more drinks where this came from.
I'm like, what else am I going to do? It's dark. I can't be on the farm. I'm sitting next to a fire.
Oh, that's nice. That's really cozy.
Well, otherwise I'd be freezing my ass off, quite frankly.
Oh.
I'm on my outside porch.
Oh,
Okay.
If you think your bird was too noisy, I have two pigs in the house. And
Oh.
you're like, oh. So they're little. Well, maybe
Yeah.
not that.
that's cute. That's
But
big.
my one, maybe like your bird, he can really get going if he, has a lot to say, and that's like screaming.
Yeah.
So all that said and done, we just keep the door closed. But anyway, thank you for the compliment. And again, I hope you guys are enjoying it. So all right, back to being able to see something. And then of course, before I rudely interrupted you, you were gonna add to, what you wanted to see out of it.
Yeah, no, I just think for, Kevin started the podcast by himself. So the first two episodes are just Kevin.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And
See?
I remember, yeah, and then my work schedule changed and I
No.
was jealous, or your work schedule
My work,
changed.
you were home on a Wednesday. At the time I was off Wednesdays and Sundays from work. So it was
Right.
like, you were home the Wednesday, you asked to join, we recorded an episode. In between the next 2 weeks, my job got restructured and I ended up being off working Monday through Friday.
Mhm.
So we finally, for the first time, in like 4 or 5 years, had the weekends off together.
Right.
Mhm.
So then we started filming every Saturday because we were both home.
And it's one of
Or
the
every other.
things, yeah, it's one of the things that we really enjoy is that we are regular. We post we record every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We have it on our calendars, and I think only a handful of times, maybe 3 or 4 times, that we've had to like not record a week. We'll do like a Sunday or something here or there, but we really like spending that time together. It's kind of, even though we live together, I don't know, it's like a date night almost when we sit down and get a chance to like chat and show off our things and talk forever.
Yeah, because even though like we're knitting in the same room,
Yeah.
we're not.
I'm not watching what,
Yeah, I'm not watching like
yeah.
everything that he does, and it's nice to see the progress on it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's. I think that's been the best part. Is number one, staying consistent has been really important to us. So it's just been a fun time. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, we've met
And
some
of course, I had to laugh somewhat. You were saying like, well, I'm not always paying attention to what he's doing, and I'm not always paying attention to what he's doing. That is sometimes just called like, 20 years of being together, right?
totally.
Absolutely,
100%.
absolutely. Like,
Yep. 100%.
Because I'm in the same shoes over here. I got to tell you, my significant other has really honestly no clue what I do. And every once in a while, he'll try to pretend. So as I'm like getting ready and I'm wearing something, and he's like, oh, what's that? It's so cute. Is this a Kimberly something? I'm just like, I can't even bother. I'm like, just get out of my way. I gotta go. So that's great that you guys have found something, to be able to bond over in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's, we plan like our trips are, related to kind of like the yarny things and the fiber festivals, and where we've been really lucky, I think, and very fortunate to have met so many incredible people. And like found the community so that when we get a chance to, we try to go to as many events as possible. And one year we kind of got overloaded.
Yeah.
It was a little too much, but that's my favorite part. I know, I mean, I don't want to
Yeah.
speak for you, but is being able to like to see all of these people, and then you get a chance to see them year after year or at different events. And even if it's just like a hi, how are you? You get to recognize, the same faces and see them every year. So you feel like you're close to them and that they're,
Yeah.
they're friends. It's really cool.
Now, so if you guys have been doing it for 5 years, so you started pre-COVID then,
Yep.
yes?
Right.
The January 2020, so like 3
Right.
months or 4 months before COVID. Like even before starting it, we had never been to a fiber festival. We'd been to one fiber festival in Connecticut, like maybe 3 years before COVID. I
Okay.
had no idea what Rhinebeck was. We had never heard of it. We never heard of like Fiber Festival of New England. Like we had no idea these things. So um the first like one we did post COVID was Rhinebeck when they
Yeah, that was our
reopened.
first fiber event.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wait. Post-COVID, Rhinebeck was your first fiber event? And that was
Yes.
such a bizarre one, I will tell you too. That
Yes.
was
It
like
was,
weird.
It was actually really good for us because it was so calm.
Yes.
It wasn't like, from what we heard afterwards,
well, what we've experienced and if,
yes,
afterwards.
like
Yeah.
it was from what we heard, and it was very calm
Yeah.
on that first one. So it was really, really nice. Um, but yeah, that was one way to really get introduced to fiber
Mhm.
festivals.
And to feel the energy. Like I think that's really where we only had intended on going the one day, Saturday. And then we're so
That's
close.
right. I didn't want to buy that much yarn.
No.
Right.
And then we got home and then I think we got up early on Sunday.
And I said to him, I was like, would it be kind of crazy if we just go back? Because we're only an hour and a half. Like it's
Right.
not that bad of a drive. Because we felt like we missed out.
Because you're across that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we went back again on Sunday, got in the car,
We picked
drove.
my mom up. We took my
Yeah,
mom.
yeah, your mother
Yeah.
came with us.
Nice. Well, I always say, I mean, whether you're a knitter, crocheter, textile, fiber person or not, there really is kind of something for
Yeah.
everybody
Oh yeah.
to, be able to enjoy or at least have like an appreciation of. But yeah, so I was going to say to going back to the COVID thing, especially having started just right at that, I am sure for you guys then as equally for me. I mean, I've been doing the fiber thing way, way longer, very grassroots, and honestly, more killing myself running around, which I do love. I mean, I don't mean it in killing myself, but my whole focus was like, I've got to be there to see the people, be with the people. I mean, I was driving to Minnesota, Minneapolis, like wherever I needed to go. I mean, Seattle, we flew, but so at some point, COVID forced us all, right, to, just settle in, be stuck, but use this platform. And I could never wrap my head around people want to watch me feed my animals. Like, I don't really understand that. But it as awkward as it was in the beginning, I think that's what really helped me as well to build the community, realizing that people were looking for that outlet. And regardless, even now, if they don't need the outlet for the COVID reasons, just for other reasons and to live vicariously and enjoy the animals and just spread positivity, in that sense. But it was definitely a little weird for me to get used to in the beginning. And so now my community, just like you were saying, the people that you see, and I think I can feel from you guys as well as I know it's for myself, look, none of us are making millions. And we do we do this because we love the people. Like when I see
Right.
the names that I know and I see the faces across the top of the screen that I know, like I do feel like they're my family. I mean, most of the people who know me and I call my lifers, they have my cell phone number. Text me, or when I love when I call somebody about something, they're like, "Wow, you're calling." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I might be a little old school, but it's just nice. It's nice to
Yeah.
hear voices." So I think that was for me the best part of COVID, and I could imagine probably what helped to catapult you guys.
Yeah, COVID certainly helped because all of us, we just needed a way to escape. And, and we were stuck in our house. And, even if you were working from home, you had downtime. Like we just needed to kill time when we were in the house. And it was a way to spend time with people without being able to really spend time with other human beings, you know? So I think it benefited us, like it was unfortunate, but it benefited us greatly. Like we got to build this great community. It's so weird. Like I was thinking about this on Christmas. How many people that I sent a text message to that day wishing them a Merry Christmas, who are people that I know because of the YouTube channel and they're now my friends, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what the beauty of starting the
Yeah.
channel was, is that now some of like our really good friends are people that we met because of the channel.
Yeah.
And we did like our we do a knit night every Thursday, strictly on Zoom. And it
Mhm.
started during COVID for
Same with
people
me.
who, yeah, who needed an outlet. And we're friends with these people all over the country. And we all log in and
Yeah.
it's every Thursday night, and we all
I will
text each
give you
other.
guys credit. I do once a month, but that's great to share. So for anybody, I'm assuming it's something that's open to anybody who wants to jump
This
in on.
one, this one is not. This one was
Oh,
a
We,
couple.
it's not even ours.
It's not even ours. We don't even own it.
okay.
I wish we could invite
I
everybody,
know.
but it started. So friends of ours who also have a podcast, Chip and Aaron, they have the Fiber Hustle podcast. They're also really about the community, and because of COVID, they hosted like a virtual bingo night
Yeah.
Okay.
for like people who watch the podcast and stuff. And we all logged in, I think, right? We played bingo, and then we just started chatting. So it really was the organic,
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
how it came together.
Yeah, and then we just been doing it. I remember like the first New Year's of COVID, we all hung out and did New Year's Eve on Zoom together
Yeah.
and like celebrated for every time zone because we had people from the east way to the west. So we
Yeah.
stayed up till like 3 a.m. to celebrate with that.
I'm like,
So
that's a long night of
It was a
celebrating.
oh, it was a
long
long
night.
night.
We drank every time that ball dropped, and it dropped.
Well, I mean, and not to, I will just share then at least, with people that are on, we always had an in-person, what we call community night.
Oh, cool.
And that was something that we did in person, actually, where I am now. We would jam in as many local people, as we could and wanted to come, and then switch to Zoom. And honestly, while I do miss and would love to try to do more things in person, it's really just worked and it's stuck because, again, as you said, it's so wonderful. All of the people that I've met from so many different places that otherwise would not be able to be here, on my porch, doing knitting and creating community together. So I will just share, with everybody on here, we do the second Wednesday of every month. Now, with that said, this coming January, the second Wednesday is going to be occupied by a crafting with Cotswolds Locks class. So then we're postponing community night to the Wednesday right before we leave for Vogue Knitting Live, which means I'm insane because that means I have to like pre-plan and pre-pack, which never happens in my world. But we didn't want to miss out on community night. But outside of that, please know everyone can check my calendar and it is open to anybody. And most of the time, honestly, my community, they just want to hear about what we're doing here on the farm and the animals. But we do try to give people the platform to share what they're working on. And I don't care if it's life yarn, it's almost fun for me, more so because I like to see what people are doing and, other things they're working on and other yarns and other designers. So I equally have just as much fun. So welcome anybody who wants to join us. Check out our calendar for that. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's just always fun. And again, I love being able to say, like, actually, I did a quick live today, and one of our fiber friends, she's from Alaska, and she knows that's my claim to fame, to be like, oh my God, it's Hillary from Alaska. And we have it. Well, actually, now Hillary is in Arizona. I still say Hillary from Alaska. But, much like you guys said, you get to know these people as best as you can and welcome them into your home. And, for me, sometimes it's harder. During COVID, we also had some tragedies in 2021 versus in 2020. And I actually felt not guilty. I felt bad in the beginning, bringing people along with the realities of a farm, the good and the bad. But I think sometimes it's important for people to understand, it's like a tangent. I don't know how I got here, but I think what I always try to tell people is my perspective as maybe the person who's not knitting is like, this is your yarn, right? If you're working with a natural fiber, my goal, my mission statement is to put a face with the fiber and to remind people that when you're knitting with something that might be a natural fiber, and if you do acrylic, all power to you. I don't care. But if you're not, and you're using something like wool, like llama, like alpaca, cashmere, mohair, this is where it comes from and this is how it gets there. And whether it's on my, gentlewoman farm, or whether it's from overseas, there's still a shepherd or a shepherdess, taking care of those animals, and they're still good and bad. So
Yeah.
sometimes that's really hard for me to show that part of it because people want to send so much compassion, but, and I appreciate it, but at the same time, we try to bring positivity and light and
Yeah.
brightness. But anytime somebody is like, I wish I owned a farm. I'm like, really? Because, it's like 0 degrees out there, or, it broke down today, or there was one time we had a storm and trees came down and half my llamas were in the woods. And I'm like, yeah, how's that owning a farm now working? So you guys think you have to manage that bird over there. You can turn the tape.
He's self-sufficient.
Yes, thankfully.
So
Yeah.
I have to ask because just in terms of being a shearer, what part of Connecticut are you guys in?
We're in Fairfield County, so we're close to, we're right
Oh,
near
town. I don't know.
Stratford.
Stratford, so we're near Bridgeport.
Oh, so
I know.
I know we're super
We're
close to you.
literally right, the ferry's right there.
everyone's like,
And-
why is she stopping? Okay, they can't get any closer to the ferry that
Yes.
would just hop them right over to my
Mhm.
side. So whenever I'm in Massachusetts, in fact, for the Fiber Festival, or anybody that's, Connecticut, Massachusetts, I'm like, you just got to get on the ferry and then hop right over. Now there are 2 ferries, so there's Bridgeport and there's New London, and
Yep.
I'll take both of them, but literally the Bridgeport ferry is like just 20 minutes due north of where I live when you get onto the Long Island side. So one of the things I told these guys, and see, you just never know where it's going to come up. I've been bugging them to get to the farm and for us to set a date. And I even asked them beforehand. I was like, all right, can I hold you guys to the fire on this?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We are definitely going to do that. So we just need a
So-
date, and then we'll just
I
put it
was
on the
gonna
calendar.
say, and
I
we
know.
need to push from the community, right? So people
Yeah.
who are, local-ish, who knows, we can maybe make a little event out of it. But nonetheless, I just love getting people here. But here's my trouble. Most people, if they have to come through the city, they are like petrified. Beth, I love you. We're just not going to take questions because this is being recorded. So drop it in the chat, but thank you. Now, Beth, she came all the way from Texas. So she's probably trying to roast you guys because she came from Texas and visited my farm. But I do respect that a lot of people are petrified, to drive through the city and the bridges and all that kind of stuff, which
yeah.
is understandable. But
It is.
the ferry is quite a lovely drive. So I'm going to work on you guys for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
for
ferry's-
sure.
It's not far. We have a friend who works the
Yeah,
ferry.
she works on the
She
ferry.
works the ferry to go.
Yeah.
Okay, you're really not helping your case
No,
now.
I know.
All right, so let's backtrack then, because maybe you could blame your jobs on it, but now I already sort of know the precursor that one person can't even, call that. So talk to me about what you guys did do, because I don't even know that.
Yeah, so I am a nurse. Nursing is a like 3rd career for me. I went back to school when I was 30, to like do all my pre-nursing. So I've been a nurse for 14 years. Right now I work as a nursing director. So I'm over quite a few areas. I've got 9 units that report up through me, about 700 and some odd staff.
Are you in a hospital?
Yep,
Or
I'm in a hospital in central Connecticut.
Okay.
So it's about an hour commute for me, but I have some flexibility with my time, which is why I was able to leave early today, which was really nice. Plus the holiday helps. The downside is that I am on call all the time. So my work phone is right across there. It was ringing before, but it's okay.
Now, when you say as a director, is that more like now administrative, or are you still on the floor?
Nope, so it's all administrative. So I oversee, I have direct oversight of like the medical units and the nurse managers that run those units. So they report up through me, and then I report up through the VP of nursing um, for the hospital. So it's much more administrative. I do go to work in scrubs every day though, because I really like I'm a nurse's nurse, you know, and I want to kind of be out on the floors as much as possible. So whenever I'm not in a meeting, I'm usually out on the floors rounding and chatting with the staff.
But
Um,
obviously, that's where you started, was on the floor, and then have
yep,
moved to this.
yep.
So if
Yeah,
you
I
said
started
you went
as
back when you were 30, what did you do before that?
So before that, I was convinced I worked with uh people who have brain injuries, who have acquired a brain injury, to kind of help like reacclimate them back into the community. A friend of ours worked for an organization called the Kennedy Center. It's a nonprofit to work with persons with disabilities. And she was involved in the brain injury to like uh, department area, and I loved it. I loved working with my clients, and that's what really prompted me to go into nursing,
Okay.
um, just to like help people, on a broader scale. And then prior to that, I was convinced that I was going to be a restaurant manager and bartender. So
Is that
then
what
I
you
re
went to school for then originally? Or did
nope,
you not
my
go to school for that?
no, my schooling was kind of all over the place. Yeah, I didn't go back to college until I was 30,
Okay.
to complete like all of my, my classes and stuff. And then because then once you get through nursing school, you can start working as a registered nurse. And at the time they didn't require a bachelor's degree because you had gone through nursing school, and your associates and stuff. So it took me a while to get my bachelor's after that, and I'm currently in an MBA program now. Um, so I'm busy, but it's fun. It's good.
Now, are you on those crazy shifts I hear where it's like 4 days on, like 3 days off kind of thing, 12 hours? Or no, as administrative, you no longer have to do that, but yet you're always on call? Which,
Yeah.
what would you, I mean, like I know people who work in like emergency or things like that. So why, as an administrative, are you always on call? Is that like if
Um,
somebody calls out sick?
no, so that's because I oversee so many things.
Okay.
That like if there's an emergency at work, I'm the first person that has to kind of get involved and do like triage for the situation at the hospital.
Okay.
Whether that be arc it up or if I have to go in to manage issues. Because we're managing a lot of people as well as like safety for the patients and stuff. So yeah, so we always like all the administrators from like the president down, we all have to kind of be on call just in case there is an emergency at the hospital.
Be
Um,
available. Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
So, you know, we can have some really interesting medical conversations. You know, it's just people and animals. It's really
Yeah.
no different in a lot of ways. So I find a lot of people that come to my farm that have that kind of background, you know, there's a similar language in so
Mhm.
many ways. You just might not think it that way. And of course, even though I don't have the same schooling as you do, it's more of an agricultural sense. But a
Yeah.
lot of people will ask me, how do we handle, you know, things with the animals? And when you have this many animals, you can't call a vet in all the time. So you know, a lot of things we do on our own, and you do your own schooling and your own teaching. So um,
Mhm.
probably not knowing the animal side of things, you'd probably be more surprised about, you know, how many, you know, similarities they are, you know, in that
Yeah,
sense.
no, it was when you were talking about meloxicam for your for
Yeah, yeah.
your, and I was like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah, this was something before we started recording for anybody who was on earlier, but we were talking about the use of AI, and I was just making reference to how you can use voice to text and it can't figure out a darn thing you're saying. And then Chat GPT was able to like understand when I was using drug terms and MIGs per kigs. And I purposely used that word MIGs per kigs because I wanted to see if it understood, and it like perfectly understood what I was saying. So yeah, it's interesting how many people human medications, you know, are transferring over to animals too, which, you know, is actually meloxicam is a big one, which is so helpful. So of course, this is a weird rabbit hole of which
Oh,
most people
totally.
are like, what are they talking about? But I can tell you some of the conversations we get in around here, even around Christmas dinner, is absolutely bizarre. So welcome to my animal life. And I'm sure you always have some stories to tell on your end too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
so now your chapter.
So I am a full-time yarn dyer now.
But
And
before that,
oh, before that. So I've done, all right, so the majority of my life has been spent in some type of customer service, whether it be call centers, managing call centers, working in HR. Um, Prior to my last position was probably like my favorite thing ever. I worked for a large sandwich company that was founded here in Connecticut. And I reviewed store openings and closings and made decisions on whether or not certain markets were good places for stores to open, and researching that and kind of like building out those, or actually building out a brand new platform that all of the restaurant owners were able to use to help determine whether or not they could open stores in certain markets. So it was really, really cool, but it unfortunately stopped being fun. And I was, at that time, I was dyeing yarn part-time, and Ray kept telling me, like, you should just quit your job, dye full-time, like
It was the first time that you
dye yarn
seemed
full-time.
so happy to be doing something and you had an outlet and we had the opportunity. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
I was just having a really rough couple of weeks at work, and I was like, you know what? We took a vacation. I think we went to Montreal, maybe. And we got back,
so
and
how
as
long ago was this? When did you make this switch?
2 years.
it'll be 2 years ago, in either
Okay,
like,
so it's relatively recent.
yeah,
Mhm.
like 2 years ago, roughly around, I think like March or April will be two
Okay.
years. Um,
Which is still sort of, I mean, I guess why I was asking is because I've also, and again, I hate tying everything to COVID, but I've seen there's the COVID, right? And then we get through that. And then there was, the post COVID. And then honestly, even for me, or at least in our industry, and I will say specifically with the mill industry, which foreshadowing, we actually have a guest on in just a couple of days that is a mill owner. So there was like a post COVID, and there's been a lot of changes of people that like sort of did their best, to survive and, kind of wrote it out. But then like maybe at some point was just like, yeah, no, like I'm just done. So yeah, I think, just when we thought the backlash was over, then I've seen even additional changes. So I'm curious if that was kind of, maybe where you found yourself at the end of that, of, just looking for, right, like joy or what makes us happy.
yeah, I think it was a little bit of everything. It was just,
Yeah.
the company I was working for, we just went through so many changes through COVID, like 4 rounds of layoffs. And you take that deep breath when you make each round. So that was like a year worth of stress, like kind of right there. And
Mhm.
then taking on a new position and going through like 8 managers within a year because of, again, changes within the company. It just got really hard to go to work and be happy. But then coming home and trying to dye yarn, at night, or if I was working from home that day and I had a little downtime, sneak into the kitchen, dye a couple skeins on a meeting or something, and having fun doing that. I was just like, why not? Like, why not just give it a shot? The worst thing, I always say, I'm never going to fail unless I try. Trying wasn't going to be the failure. The failure would have been to not try at all.
Yeah.
So I figured, just do it.
I have to, and it's funny, just as you were talking, and then I thought, maybe I'll share the podcast that I listen to most of the time because it's more audio. And when you just said that, I spend most of my time, if I'm feeding my animals, or honestly, even if I'm cleaning the house, which don't get me wrong, it's not all the time, but whenever I'm doing something that I just want that audio, I actually listen to more of a business podcast. It's Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V. I will just, share that. The funny thing is he'll say like, "Oh, I'm not a motivational speaker." It is more like business minded, but a lot of it is inspirational in a sense. Of what he'll say is, if you go to a nursing home, old age home, whatever you want to call it, whatever the proper term is, talk to those people. What are they going to talk about? They're more than likely going to talk about the things that they didn't do, the things that they regret that they didn't try. And that sticks with me a lot. Good, because even in my own life, there's things that I know I want to execute on, things that I want to do. And so when you were saying that, and in terms of there's no failure, the failure is if you don't try.
Yeah.
So that just really resonated, and I think that's amazing. But at the same time, you have to give yourself credit, because we all know people don't love change, right? And making that jump. I mean, even for myself, I'm not trying to tie it back to me, but it took me 2 years to leave my cushy, literally government job to be able to like do this thing on my own. And even unfortunately, my he wasn't my husband at the time, was like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And I'm like, finally, I'm like, well, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And I love him dearly, but I'm like, you're not married to me. So I'm doing this, and sometimes you just got to make that jump, but change is
Yes.
so hard. So that's amazing, to have that support, to make that change, and for whatever inspiration it offers everybody, right? It's the new year. And if this is a time to try something, I think, what do they say in terms of like how many hours of our life is related to our job? And to be doing something that is not bringing you joy, that is not making you happy. I don't know that life, and I can't imagine that people that have to
Yeah.
get in their car or, do something every day in which they are not smiling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And so, how's it going?
It's great. I enjoy it. Dyeing yarn is a lot of math and a lot of science, and I love both. So I have a lot of fun with it. And we're very fortunate too. I will say that the viewers of our YouTube channel have been so supportive.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have been able to leave my corporate job if it wasn't for the viewers of our YouTube channel. They've just so supportive from the very beginning. But I love doing it. Like, I think I'm finally at a spot too where I feel confident doing it, because that first like year or so, there's so much to learn, and it's another thing where there's not a lot of information about it. It's there's only maybe one, I will say, one dedicated YouTube channel really that I know of dedicated to dyeing yarn. Um, but other than that, there's not a lot out there. So it was a lot of trial and error and just trying to figure things out on my own. And I think I'm kind of there, and like the way, like my dye style and like the colors that I'm making. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had our
Can,
very
oh, go ahead.
first we had our very first trunk show in August, July.
We did two trunk shows this past year, one in July and one in September.
Yeah. So July was the very first time bringing our yarn to a yarn shop and seeing it all spread out, on a table. And it was a really like humbling, very cool experience because he dyes in the kitchen. And our house, the yarn just ends up after it's washed and taken care of, we put them in bins. So it's like they're trying to
Pictures of my house right now with the
yeah,
yarn
and
draped on the backs of chairs.
the only reason why we can sit in our dining room is because we had to clean
For
to have
Christmas.
people over for Christmas.
Like,
If my
Otherwise,
husband
there's
goes to
yarn
sit down,
everywhere.
I'm like, see that white yarn? Do not sit in that chair, please. Do not.
Yep. Yep.
it goes everywhere depending on the time of year too, because it's like drying it this time of the year is very difficult because it's cold. So you need it in areas where there's heat and it could dry quicker. So yes, there have been times, we have bins. One of our spare rooms is just bins of dye jar. That's what it is. Like, nobody can spend the night anymore because we
No.
don't have a spare room for you.
Yeah.
All the yarn
Sorry.
there.
But it was cool. It was a cool experience to see it all laid out. And that was kind of the moment where I think, you and I talked about it. Like he had said, because it's such a creative process and he enjoys the process, that we don't really have a plan like, okay, let's do not a theme, what's it called? Like a collection, a
Right.
specific
Yeah.
collection. Like this is our fall collection, this is our blue collection, or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
And so, but seeing it all out and watching the actual customers and our friends like picking up the yarn and touching it and comparing it with others, it was like, wow, these actually they go you are cohesive, like they do go together. And
Yeah.
it was a really neat experience to see people like touching the yarn and getting that feedback. So yeah,
Yeah. It's been
I'm
a
I'm
fun time.
excited for this year. Yeah.
Well, and so, for me, I come at it from a totally different angle, and ignorant at that, which sometimes is good. I mean, I don't know now how you've gone into that journey. even though I laugh about my little like farm bubble, which it was funny. So I'm gonna dial back when we were talking before we started recording, and I told you guys how I wouldn't know people if they came into my booth. And then when you were talking about getting started, not even our story, but when you were talking about getting started and to the podcast, and you said you watched the Grocery Girls podcast. Okay, so I'm the idiot that at Rhinebeck, somebody brought them into my booth. Literally, I had no idea who they were. And then they were sort of like, yeah, don't you know who these people are? And I was like, no, sorry. And they were so sweet. And I just
Sure.
always use my like, I'm just on my farm
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
do my thing. But sometimes it's a good thing, right?
Hmm.
Because I feel like then for me, when I am doing my yarn, doing designs, trying to come up with things, or even just ideas, because I'm not just all about yarn and designs, we've got lots of product and like kind of a lifestyle brand. I love that I'm not saturated with other influences. Now, of
Right.
course, it sucks when all of a sudden you come up with something and you're like, dang, it's already there. But, you know, I think sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. So I'm
Yeah.
curious now, do you find yourself trying to, you know, like, what do you consider your aesthetic to be? Do you have an aesthetic?
I don't think I do. I know I like actually okay. So I know I love blues and grays and greens. Like that's my jam. It always has been. Um, and apparently I really don't like yellow because I don't use that a
You
lot.
don't have a lot of yellow.
So I have to try to work on that. I I just kind of do whatever I want, whatever I'm in the mood to do. And sometimes, and I do have to step outside my comfort zone. Like I'm not a bright color person. I'm not pastelly, and I have to stop every now and again and be like, you're not dying for yourself, but let's just have some fun with color. And that's the time when I don't have a plan. I just go in, I grab some dye powders, mix some things up, throw it in a pot and see what happens. And those sometimes are the best outcomes.
Hmm.
But I'm going to argue you there because that's what I do. So I feel like because I'm the same way. I mean, actually, I had a totally different outfit on tonight, and I was like, I look like pastel puke. I am getting the off. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but also on camera, there's, you know, certain things that you need
Yes.
to stand out. So I will argue in the sense, though, that there are people that do something for everybody, right? And I at least just feel like for the many years that I've done this, now I'm not dyeing, I design yarn. So aesthetically, I'm sort of putting, you know, between, for those that don't know me, using base farm fibers. And then if I don't want to go totally natural, I will interject dyed wool or dyed bamboo or dyed silk in order to create another type of yarn, but everything is done prior to spinning, at least for what I'm dealing with. And then, of course, we've stepped outside and done dye collabs. But, you know, I think that, yeah, you're not going to walk into my booth and see I'm more earth tones. You know, I do love the naturals. And at some point, I think I got too far away from it. But color does sell, I know. But, you know, I think that that is what's beautiful is like you're gonna like your people will come to you, right?
Yes.
And I mean, this is a weird soapbox. I just so believe it that it's like whatever you are passionate about, and that will come through your yarn. And then those people will find it and love it. And if that's not their jam, I won't name names, but I'm just going to use an example. Like when we vended at Vogue for several years, there was somebody right across from us that was huge and demonstrative, and the colors were so outlandish, and their personalities were so just over the top, which is lovely. It just is so not me. And I actually found myself feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm across from them, like feeling overshadowed. But I had to tell myself, you know, they have their people, you have your people. And sometimes those cross, but I
Hmm.
don't know. I just felt like I wanted to share that in terms of like having designed, you know, quite a bit longer and not I don't even have time to keep up with the damn trend. I have no idea what
Yeah.
trends are. Like, you
Yep.
know, like you said, I do exactly the same thing. I just do what I like. And
Yeah.
people will
And you
gravitate.
have to like, that's the whole reason I'm doing this is because I was so unhappy doing something else. Like
Exactly.
I never want to be in a position where I'm putting myself in
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
spot where I'm unhappy because I don't like doing it. So it's just about having fun.
I'm like,
And
so
you
hell with yellow. Don't use yellow.
right. Well, like you'll have your days where you're like, you know what? I think today I'm just gonna have fun. I'm just gonna go
Yeah,
try out a bunch of different things, and that's okay. Like
yeah.
we're not making money and all that stuff. Like it's sustaining
It's
itself. Like we're not like turning any kind of
it's not about
profits or whatever. It's
it's
not
not
about
about
that. It's really about your that outlet and
yeah.
Yeah,
that process, which I think is really cool. And so you're not like chasing the next sale or being like, I've got to dye 20 of this colorway because that's the only thing that's selling right now on the website. It's
right.
not about that. It's
Yeah.
about, I'm gonna just try some new things today,
Yep.
which is
But at
cool.
the same time, I know what it's like when you have a vision in your head and then you're like, you get it. I mean, for you, in a sense, you diet, and then you're just sort of like, yeah, maybe that didn't go well. But
Yeah.
I call those happy accidents because I am the crazy woman when the UPS man shows up, right? Because my yarns are designed in my head, they're done at the mill, and then they'll come to me, but it doesn't always mean it's going to work out the way I want them to either. And when I see that box coming, I like throw the door open and I like accost my man and take my box. I've literally met my UPS man at the gas station when I needed my yarn faster than what they were going to
Oh my
get it
God.
to or seven. That's when we're on a deadline for sure. And I am not joking at all. But when you open up that box, right, and you're like, like, this is not what it was supposed to look like.
Hmm.
And you got to take a minute and you got to just take a deep breath because you know what? It's still beautiful. It's just not
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
your mind what you thought it was going to be, right? And somebody is still going to love it. And, but I know that anticipation of, your image versus what comes out is sometimes hard.
And
Totally.
what's really tricky too with dyeing is that you don't know what it's going to look like until the yarn is dried. Like
Yes.
you pour dye on it and it changes from the moment you pour it until it gets heated. But then it's so saturated, like you don't know what it looks like in that final product. So sometimes I'm like, oh, this is awful. And then it's dried and I'm like, oh, this is really pretty. I should do this again. So it's weird, like from one extreme to the other in like a 2 day period of time.
And you know what's funny coming into this? So honestly, I had no idea. I mean, I knew you guys dabbled in it, but I honestly had no idea that you had switched over to a full time. And later on in the program, I actually have another indie dyer who will be with us and talking about that process because I don't know that world either. So, I mean, without sharing, because I know that sometimes that's, a concern or whatever. I'm not asking you to like divulge where you get it from, but right. So is it a matter of like you have a place where you can choose like the bases that you want to work with and the different weights and you are ordering them au naturel as I would call it and then you're
Yeah.
putting your palette on top of it, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I would say in the US, there's probably three larger, I think, companies that most indie dyers buy their bases from.
Okay.
I buy them typically in packs of like 10 of fingering weight, 75, 25.
Okay.
And um, yeah, and then they come and they're skeined up like they're all ready to die.
Okay,
They're
that's what I was curious. So are they tied up in the way with like
Yes.
a
yep,
loose figure eight, ready to die kind of thing?
Yes.
So
yeah,
for
they're ready to
anybody who
go.
doesn't understand like what we're talking about, so for me, my yarns come back from the mill, and unless I specifically ask for it, they're like, tied up tight. So anybody who's going to be working with my yarns, has to undo all of that depending on their process. Otherwise, you get these lovely rings, where the ties are, which
Yeah.
maybe in some ways kind of cool, but most times not, perhaps. So so that's interesting that yours comes like ready to go with that premise in mind.
Yeah, they're ready to go. Like they don't have to be washed. They don't have to be like scoured or anything, like soaked, and then they're ready to be dyed.
And are you guys dyeing on your stove? Like, what's your setup like? Yeah. So what's
So
your
I dye
pot
it.
size? Like, my understanding is certain dyers can maybe only do like 6 skeins at a time based on because most people are operating on small scale.
Yeah, so I operate in the kitchen and I
I
have
love
like
how you're looking. Are you looking
Because
toward
our
the
it's right
kitchen's
there.
right there.
It's literally right there. So the kitchen and I'll use the stovetop and I do catering pans and 16 quart stock pots. So
Okay.
catering pans, like the big catering pans I use
Yeah.
for like variegated and speckledy yarns. For
Yes.
tonals, I use the stock pots because I can get a better or more even coverage on that.
Mhm.
And so at any given time, with tonals, it's more time consuming. Actually, you would think it would take less time. Um, I have gone as far as running 8 pots at a time, but that still's not a lot of yarn. It's only 3 skeins per pot because you need space for them to move around to absorb the dye evenly. So it like those take more time. Variegateds are really quick. I typically do 5 skeins in a tray, and I have at the most I'll do 6 trays at a time.
Okay.
We have when he's dying, it's
Awful.
craziness in here. Like there, it's like a science experiment because we keep all of the dye supplies in the basement.
And
We've
you're
got
using acid dyes, I
Yeah.
assume? Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
acid
acid dyes.
dyes.
Yeah.
And Kevin will go downstairs to collect all of his, supplies that he's gonna need. And he comes up and so he uses syringes to help, like, with the measurements
So
and
let me
stuff.
guess where he gets those from.
No,
It was me in the beginning,
it was,
I have to admit,
it
but I'm
was.
not on the floors anymore, so I can't bring this stuff home.
Yeah, I mean, I use syringes, beakers, paintbrushes. I have a ton of spoons. I have ball mason jars. So much stuff. But then sometimes, if I'm really trying to push myself, I have a folding table that I put in the dining room,
Mhm.
and then I have 4 additional burners that go on there. So I'm going back and forth between the kitchen and the dining room. So it gets to be a lot sometimes.
It's like a chemistry
It is, but it's
like
so.
classroom because there's wires
Sounds like
everywhere.
a fire
The,
hazard.
the
Oh my gosh.
beakers.
There's,
Luckily, we
extension
have a
cords
good
running everywhere.
yeah.
It's a great
We
time.
have a good electrical system in this house.
So now are you an assistant? Or do you just
No,
like
I'm not allowed to. No, no.
No.
So I'm colorblind, so I can't
Oh
help
my
that.
gosh.
So I'm red green colorblind.
Okay.
I can see colors, which is why I usually go for like earth tones and neutrals because they all match, if I don't have to worry about not
So
matching.
I don't totally understand because I don't actually have anybody in my life that is. So
Oh.
if you're colorblind, what do you mean you can see colors? What colors can you see?
So I can see all colors, but I have a difficult time differentiating between like reds and greens. So purples are really difficult for me because there's a lot of red in purple.
Okay.
And so purples can lean like blue when I'm looking at it or pink, depending on how like light it is. And
Interesting.
then greens can lean more yellow or like brown.
Okay.
Um, to me, so I have a hard time being able to like, to tell the difference. Or like sometimes I'll see yarn, like, I mean, this looks like yellow to me. Is this yellow?
Yeah, that's yellow.
So Kevin will ask me all the time. So like this is yellow, but sometimes it like I can see green too. So it's a gamble for me. I'm like, oh, is that green or is that yellow?
Well,
Um,
that's what I was going to ask. Are you able to train your brain to say that looks like green, but then I know that's yellow, or it doesn't work that way?
no, because then when you put them up close to each other, they look exactly the same to me. So, those colorblind tests where you have to like you look at the circle with the different dots and see the number
Right.
inside.
Right.
I fail every time.
I mean, that's not funny, but in the
No.
sense of like being a yarny and,
Mhm,
working around so much color, I think it just provides an interesting twist to it.
mhm.
Oh
But
yeah,
now
we have
I
fun with it all
understand
the
why
time.
you're not allowed to play with the dyeing process.
Yeah,
Although
so
I tell you, I'm all for there's got to be like, a dye batch that's yours and let's just see what comes out.
totally. I think I'm ready to try my hand on it. Um,
You
just
can't see
saying.
his face right now.
He's getting nervous. I
No.
can feel him shaking next to me. But I am allowed to help with the scanning
Yeah, that took a
and
while
and
though.
the labeling. Yeah, you didn't trust me
The
with the
scanning,
scanning. I'm really good
the
at it now.
scanning is a skill.
It
Like
is a skill.
it really is. Scanning yarn is a skill,
Yeah.
and
In terms of the twisting. Now,
yes,
wait. Do you guys have the little machine?
yes.
Mhm.
See, I'm still old school, like around my knee,
Oh,
twisting it up at the shows. People think that that is like an athletic sport. I'm like, it's not that
It
difficult,
is.
but yeah. Well, then I guess I got that nailed because we don't have
Yeah.
a machine.
yeah. The machine has been a lifesaver, especially when you have to do like you know, for one of our trunk shows, for instance, we brought like 1,000 skeins with us. That's
Yeah.
so much twisting to do. Um,
Understood.
but yeah, I love that machine.
Yeah, it's a good, yeah.
And it's also a difference of like, I mean, you guys have been in my booth, we just have a different aesthetic in terms of how we
Mhm.
present our yarns,
Yeah.
and I will just say, I mean, I came up with that. I mean, years ago when I first started, I remember Malabrigo always had, because I worked in a knitting store in the beginning teaching spinning lessons. And that was kind of like my first exposure to just that side of the world and observing and product display and different things like that. And that's where I saw that, and I don't know, it just stuck. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna, I don't even think I knew enough to say I'm gonna be different. I just thought it was cool how the yarn was open and hanging. You could see
Yes.
all of it, you could really touch it. Now, don't get me wrong, in terms of what do they call like shelf space, it sucks. But, you know, it's a different perspective that way. So yeah, I mean, we're not scanning everything. Actually, I'm always here steaming everything, because
Mhm.
when I get a yarn like this, which I'll pull this up so we'll talk about it, I have to undo it, steam it, because I need to get all that crimp or those kinks out for
Mhm.
the way that
Yeah.
I display it. And then everything here at home is like laying out in bags or hanging, in order to be able to go like from show to show. And then when people purchase it, we wrap it around the knee, we look all fancy, and off they go. So just a
Wow.
little difference. So let's talk about what you sent me then.
Sure.
Just to kind of pull it up, these were two skeins that you sent. One here is called Monet's Garden,
Mhm.
and the other one is, now I did check out your website. There's a little bit of homework that I did. So the single brew, my
Mhm.
understanding is that what I call like the happy accident.
Happy accident.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So this is single brew romantic rhapsody. So
And fun fact about that one is
Yeah.
I used AI to name it. Like if I'm struggling to come up with a colorway name, I ask AI to help me with names and it spits out like 10. And I was
oh
like,
my
oh,
God.
Tick Rhapsody. I was like, perfect.
Like honestly, I am done, because that just saved my life. And here's the, we were just talking about like Chat GPT before that. I'm still not used to thinking of those things. And you should see us like a bunch of idiots over here, literally just yesterday for our die collab that's coming out later in the 12 Days of Christmas. I'm like, I had two teenagers, Jill, my office manager, and I'm like, all right, let's go, guys. Like, what are we thinking? What are we? And we like round robin and try to come up with stuff. And sometimes we're really good. And then other
Yeah.
Mhm.
times you should hear some of the names that we want to call it
Yep.
because we're just over it.
Yeah.
That's how we were too. And we would send like
Pictures.
pictures out to people. What does this look like? What
Yeah.
does this look like?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's rough coming up with names
Yeah.
sometimes.
It is, and I love it. That's a game changer. So now I'm going to give you guys credit for the next time we
Yeah.
try to do that. So now I'm just looking. I mean, both of these are on what you call Athena sock. So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
5% superwash, extra fine merino, 15% nylon, and you have it as a 4-ply fingering weight. So is this a pretty common base for you guys?
No, it's fairly new. Like
Yeah.
I just got it, I think within the past 6 months.
Okay.
I received a skein, or we did, from another dyer, and I loved it so much. And we talked about it on the YouTube channel, and she reached out and told me where she bought it from.
Okay.
So as soon as she
Nice.
did, I got some and I started dyeing it, and I love it. I think it's a good I think it's really, really soft.
It's
It's
really
actually,
soft.
I like
Yeah.
feeling, I was like, wow, this is really, really soft. And it's a really great base for people who find natural fibers, we'll say scratchy.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also really good for kids because it is machine washable.
Right.
So we use it like something like that a lot for our nieces and nephews.
Mhm. Yeah, that's superwash. It's funny. Back in the day, there was a lot of controversy
Mhm.
about superwash versus non-superwash, and everything has its place. But I know that a lot of what's available in terms of for indie dyers, does tend to be, superwash. But again, that would be something I would have no idea, except for what I've been doing more recently. So it's just funny the two different worlds.
Yes.
Mhm.
When you kind of cross paths in that sense. One of the things I always tell people when I first started, and I was there, this is back in the day before farm-based yarns were more popular. Like,
Mhm.
it really wasn't popular in the beginning. And when I kind of showed up on the scene, like people were amazed that I'm like, no, that's the real black, or that's the real white. And that's why it looks cream, because it's not, that's as white as real white gets. And people, like, I didn't even understand that like black yarn was dyed black to be consistently black, or, that was how ignorant I was in terms of the world that I came from versus what most of the other people were used to. And even
Right.
going back in the day, and I'm not, knitters were so much less aware of like even that merino was a breed. I kid you
Mhm.
not. So I feel like we've come so far in terms of, crossing paths, blending both worlds, and people understanding more, where their fibers are coming from,
Yeah.
versus then, putting colors on them, and what's applicable. And at the same time, while we love everything that's super soft and squishy, also things that are coarser or more rustic, as I like to call it,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
different applications, as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to beg of you guys, are you guys good? You
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I want to do, just because I know as I'm holding this up, and maybe some people are going to bow out on us, I just want to take a few moments to do some business things, so that way, if anybody needs to leave, they might be looking at these yarns, and I want to make sure they know how to possibly get their hands on them. Now, first, I want to say thank you, Erin. She's been dropping your podcast links, your
Yes. Thank you
website
very
links,
much. Yes.
and everything, into the chat. I also want to say thank you to everybody that has been utilizing the chat. I am looking at it, smiling. So sometimes if I'm randomly smiling, it's not about what they're saying, but I'm just happy to see everybody kind of vibing and, making comments about many different things that we're talking about. So I do just want to circle back for anybody that missed in the beginning. Most importantly, a couple of things that you guys have to get involved in throughout these 12 days of Christmas. If you miss any of the evenings, please know this is recorded. And then every morning, this will be uploaded to my pathetic YouTube channel, but it's there. Go take a look, go take a watch, share it with people, because there's a lot of things that are only going to be accessible to those that are here. We do have a code for you to give you 50% off my skincare. And this is not even like, I don't go anywhere without it. I do know that these guys love
We
it
love
and
it.
they always promote it. Don't let me forget to tell the story where I thought you were stealing it. But I but I'm like, I have it right here, because for me this time of year, especially being outside, I would otherwise die. So it is something I truly live by. So TDOC 2450. I know Erin's been dropping it in the chat. That's going to get you guys 50% off any of my skincare, body butter, salves, lippies, soaps, bath bombs, steamers. It is going to exclude my llama loofahs. That's only because I have to make them by hand. And after the holidays, they are made to order at this point. And any of our kits or gift sets, because those are already discounted. So please utilize that, especially if you are new to me. I know I've given these guys codes before to share on their podcast, just as a thank you to them. So that's going to be good until the 6th, which is the last of our 12 days of Christmas. The other thing that I just want to let you know is, please, if you're here on behalf of Kevin and Ray and you are loving this, I hope that you'll join us for some of the other evenings. I've got a great lineup of people. Now, my next 2 nights are actually non-industry people. So I have tomorrow night friends of mine that I shear for. They've got sheep, they've got llamas, but they're now involved in preserving a very rare pony slash horse. It's a Newfoundland pony. So they're involved in the conservancy because that's where the husband is from. And just really interesting. And I find sometimes that people like stuff that's a little bit out of the box. And I hear they're going to be coming to us from in the barn with the ponies to be able to talk to us a little bit about that. And they live up in beautiful New Hampshire. Up by Gap Mountain, if anybody knows that. It's my favorite, one of my favorite farms to go and shear for. And then after that, I actually have a high school student that I would love if you would come and give her some love for her Gold Girl Scout project. That's like the final project as a Girl Scout. She actually made her project about my llamas going to camp. My
Oh,
llamas went to, her mom works at a huge, okay, I'm going to date myself. This was my nursery school. I have pictures when I was 4 and 5 going to this nursery school, Ivy League, And now it's this huge Ivy League day camp preschool. And now my llamas went there last summer and spent all summer there. We rotated them. So they're going to have lots of fun stories about llamas going to camp, but also Ashley's project about making it educational, revamping the areas for them. And she had asked me to give her a platform because as part of her project, she needs to share it with an audience. And I'm like, I have the perfect audience. So I really hope that you guys might join in for that. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to have a mill owner, another indie dyer. I can't even remember. Oh, New Year's Eve. If you guys do not have New Year's Eve plans, or even if you do not know Linda Courtwright from Wild Fibers, she is the most amazing storyteller. And last year we did a lecture series with her. She travels the world and has the most gorgeous pictures and stories about fibers and textiles from all over. Do you guys know her?
I don't
No.
think so.
Oh, I love this. See, this is why we do this. I really honestly have to tell you, and anybody, please drop it in the chat. I have nothing to give other than I adore her, and I've known her for years because she would always speak at our llama conferences, and it was my goal as a fiber person to be like in her magazine, but she always did international, and then she did switch to domestic, and I did get to be in it. I cannot even tell you. The pictures are incredible. Her stories are incredible. If you guys think we can jab and yap and go on and on, I mean, her accounts of traveling the world and how these fibers come from all these other places and get to us and the people and the culture and the community, absolutely amazing. So last year we did a lecture series on Zoom, and everybody really enjoyed it, and we're doing that again. So as I mentioned to you guys, away, like this isn't even yarn. I am not telling you to buy yarn. I am saying buy into something that's informational, educational. So last night we dropped open the registration for her next lecture series. It's $35. I mean, if you buy one by one, it's like 60, but $35 for 4 lecture series, one a month. It's in the middle of winter. What else are we doing? And you can do it from the comfort of your home. It's like an hour and a half because she doesn't care how long she's on either. And they are recorded. So if you can't make it, you have a week, only a week, because she does this also for other guilds and things like that. So I can't say enough about it. So please, that's what we do for New Year's Eve. She joined me last year, and I'm having her come back again for New Year's Eve. So just lots of fun things. I have a candle maker, the woman who does my candles, the young woman that does that. So just fun things. So please join me. And for those of you that have done my knit-alongs before, registration just opened up for that again. So remember, for every purchase, for every $10, you get a ticket. That goes in for this basket, of which we've got things from all of my guests, super fun things from project bags to yarn to sweatshirts. Oh, that's the other thing. I get so excited. I'm sorry. One of my customers, she has a not-for-profit farm in Delaware that she created, in a sense, out of her grief of her loss of her dad. And then she went through to be a grief counselor. And now she has this not-for-profit farm in Delaware where she opens up her farm to be able to do grief counseling for people and provide opportunities for people to create a community in a different way. So she's one of my guests too. So lots of really fun things. So I encourage you guys to take a peek and join in. But I told you guys as we were wrapping this up that I was going to hold you to something, and you said I could. So,
Me too.
all right, I'm not holding you to it, but I said, look, I'm not going to mention it. So everybody that is still with us, I don't have my glasses on, like all 3 people, because we are 2. I have been asking these guys about entertaining dyeing some of my yarn. Now, with all I see is Erin's face. Now, with all due respect, what I loved is that I finally did get some feedback in terms of, and this is my ignorance, the difference between superwash versus, natural fibers. One of the things for myself, honestly, before collabs were a thing, I don't feel like I started it, but I had the idea before COVID came into play where people really started doing that. For me, my yarn is called American Raised and Spun, and I used to incessantly watch NPR. And if anyone knows NPR, there's American Life. you know that program. So Life is Us, Long Island Yarn and Farm, LIYF. So there is my collaboration that we call American Life with, and then that would be whoever I have worked with. For instance, Cabin Boy Knits was actually one of my early ones that I worked with, and he did solar dyeing with my yarns. Now that's a story because it got caught up in COVID. He had my yarn for like a year before I
Oh,
could
wow.
and he delivered it to me at Vogue Knitting Live. You know, so I've worked with all different people, but of course I wanted to use that because I know you guys all do a guy thing, and I know that you're familiar with him. So I'm just putting it out there in a sense that it's something I would love. I would love for you guys to entertain it. Last year we actually did a year long, not with one person. Well, it was, but that's not what I'm proposing. But we had this year-long collaboration of natural dyeing yarns every month, and it was a small collection that would blast off at the second Friday of every month. And it was just like whoever got those 20 skeins. And, you know, there was a whole lot of other stuff with it. But I do have a new idea for this coming year of hitting up different dyers to just do small collaborations that, you know, we have fun with, and maybe throw some other things with it. So I would love if you would entertain it. And the only thing I will release you of feeling bad about, because I feel like that's what I hear, is like, remember, everything's a happy accident.
Yeah.
And so I would just love if we can, you know, entertain it, maybe talk about it. We'll got to get you here first. But I would just say I would love if it would be something you would think about. And I think people would love it. And it's just fun. At least it's fun for me because I have no. I understand. I'm trying to understand the pressure that maybe you might feel and a different fiber that maybe you're not used to. The funny thing is I never have any expectations. And what I love is just, you know, I never micromanage it. I love other people's perspective. And that a little bit goes back to like what we talked about. I'm not a bright colored person, but I'll do collaborations with people that have a totally different aesthetic than me because it's me as the yarn, right? Because this is not, my yarn is not yarn bought. My yarn is fibers brought to the mill and yarn made for me. So it is different in that sense. So that's me. And then the color is somebody else. So it's kind of cool when somebody comes into my booth and that would not be me, but I have fun seeing it, you know, on me, which is the yarn, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%.
Why do we?
The bird.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, I just saw shadows flying
You'll probably
over.
see the shadow.
You could see the shadow of him doing his lap.
Yeah.
So you know, again, I'm just putting it out there to say I would love it, especially now. I feel like you've totally blown. You've just blown every reason of not to do it because I had no idea you were doing it full time, you know, like, and so I would love it if you would entertain it. But first, we're going to get you here, I hope, to be able to also visit the farm, and maybe that might offer its own fun and inspiration.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
We've been dying to go for the past, like, when did we meet? 2 years ago?
Well, I was just so, and before we go, like we've got a, where was that that was at Vogue?
That was at Vogue. So we actually went to your booth. We met you at Vogue. We went to your booth the first time at New England. And that's where we got the product. We got the salve and the body butter.
And so that's the Fiber Festival of New England. For anybody who doesn't know, it's at the facility we call the Big E. Do you guys ever go to the Big E when it's the fair?
No, we
haven't been in.
We actually were going to go this year, and then we were really happy we didn't because we saw all these like parking issues and blah blah blah.
Yeah, there were a lot of issues this year.
I know. So, but we haven't gone in like 20 years, and maybe
well, we got to get you there when I'm there showing llamas.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's because we used to go all the time, like as kids. Again, we're an hour away, or maybe like
when you live close to something. So many people are like, "No, I don't go," you know, and yet you're so close to it. So I do get that.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I just saw in the chat popped up. Sarah called me out on not using. I haven't used the soap felting kit yet. I just found it again the other day.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Thanks for holding me accountable.
Thank you.
2025 will be my year.
Yes. So we met. That's the first time we came across your booth and bought product.
And that's
And
where I have my llamas. Like that's a fun
yes,
event for me because I
Yeah.
can bring my animals there.
yeah.
Hmm.
Like this year you had two. You had the mother
I
and
always bring a mom and a baby because
baby.
how can you not? Everybody
Yep.
loves.
Right.
And then the next time, so then we go to the booth at Vogue, and that was our first Vogue that we had gone to. So
And I remember there was an entourage already because I just
there,
remember there was a group of people and I didn't know what was happening.
there was a group of us there, and I was checking out, and I think, and I probably got a lot, like like two of the lotions and another thing of the salve, and we were checking out, and Tabitha was to my left, and I think I was just putting stuff in like my bag, like literally just from the counter in my bag. And jokingly, she's like, you're not stealing that, are you? And I was like, no, 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 no. And the woman, and she works every booth of yours that I know of, who always works that body butter booth, the blonde hair.
That's Becky.
Becky.
Call her
Becky,
Becky with the good hair. She's like 5 feet tall.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So, and Becky was checking us out, and I think she was like, no, no, he paid, but that was our first time meeting.
Well,
And we
and
had it
I have
every
no
time.
problem saying I don't remember exactly what it was, but I really wasn't joking
No,
because
I know.
Yeah.
there was something that seemed weird, like you were just like somebody wasn't talking to you and you were literally just putting stuff in. And I'm like, what's happening here? Because
Yeah.
of course
Yep.
that is a thing. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I should have realized it was so blatant. But again, perfect example because there I am, have no idea who I'm talking to, and I'm thinking you're stealing my body butter.
It was it's one of our favorite experiences. We joke about it all the
Yeah. It
time.
was funny. Yeah. It
And
was
we
really
always
fun.
stop by the booth. We
Yeah.
didn't get, we weren't there, but you were super busy this
Yeah.
year
You
at
were
New
really busy
England.
this year.
At which one?
Fiber Festival of New England.
Yeah.
It kind of comes and goes, right? It's funny that you say that, which I appreciate because I have a hard time going from Rhinebeck to that. And I
Uh-huh.
hate to do this, but it's like apples and oranges, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the really nice thing about the Fiber Festival of New England is you actually usually can talk to people and
Yes.
Yeah.
build relationships and have conversations. I always say at Rhinebeck, I'm just throwing shit at you. Sorry,
You're
people.
right.
I really
No.
appreciate the support. This is how we, survive and are able to do what we do, and we love it. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're just throwing stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
That's Fiber Festival of New England is probably our favorite
yeah.
Yes.
because you can talk to people.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It is. It's quaint. You are going to see vendors that you don't see at Rhinebeck, and even if
Yep.
they are at Rhinebeck, you probably never found them. And at
Yes.
the same time, for me, I can bring my animals.
Yeah.
And
It's
actually,
still
we did
farmy.
a
I like
class
it.
this year. See, I have a million things I could ask you guys. Do you guys do classes or anything, or at this point, you're
Oh,
just
I
like under
wish
the radar?
No, it's, we always talk about
we
it.
don't know what we're
They must
doing.
ask you to speak, don't they?
We've spoken once at an event that we won't mention because it was so poor afterwards. But we've spoken at one event in the past, and and we do things like this, but it goes back to that thing.
Voldemort. Yeah.
Yeah, the Voldemort of events. It goes back to kind of saying like, we just do this for the community, so we don't plan anything. We just let whatever's going to happen happen. So we never like, I think oh no, you haven't taught a class. There was an idea of you doing a sock class somewhere, but that
Turned into the fundraiser for Sam's Socks for Sam.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we've never done anything like official like that because we just have fun. And even, people ask us about vending at like Rhinebeck. I was like, Rhinebeck would be a hard pass for me because that's a lot, but I have so much fun walking around events and getting to chat with everybody. And so it's a weird thing for us. We just go with the flow. And if
Yeah.
something comes up,
Nobody's asked us to speak or anything like that either. So
no, we've done one speaking.
yeah.
Right?
I mean since then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I mean, look, I think what is really nice, and I hope that some of the events, I think sometimes they're always so like technically focused, right? And they want teachers and really, how many times do we hear from knitters? Not that everybody can't always learn something, but they like something different. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
sometimes it is about the fun, with a little bit of information thrown in. And, I mean, I try to do the same because I'm not teaching anybody anything about a knitting technique, but, I can bring a different perspective to things. So I think at the same time, like you guys said, you talk easily, you're enjoyable, you're throwing in a different perspective that needs to be seen. So I'm
Yeah.
really glad that you guys have the platform to do that, and you're killing it for sure.
Oh, we love
It's
it.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, I guess before we close, I would just say, like, is there anything? I appreciate you guys hanging in with me. Like I said, I could go on and on because I truly do this because I enjoy it as well. I enjoy learning about people and enjoy chit-chatting, and especially when people are so easy to talk to, like you guys are also.
Huh?
So, I mean, is there anything? Well, I'm going to say, let me do this first. Let's do this first. And then I'm going to say, think about anything that you might want to share before we close. But here's what happens. I get carried away and then I forget about my giveaways. So we told people they had to hang in till the end. So we're still at, well, 51. So that's 49. So, a couple of people are going to miss out. But let me close the chat so it makes it a little easier for me. So I need you guys to pick a number and I'm going to scroll. And then that person is going to get a $20 store credit with us.
Ooh. 32.
Okay.
All
Good.
right, you guys got to hang in. So I don't know, sing like a Jeopardy
All
song.
right, is that too far down?
Oh no, hey, this is what we do. This is real life. I have to come up with a better thing. I need like an Alexa or something I can ask, I guess. So 1, 2, 3. What did you say? 32?
Yes.
7, 8, 9. Hang on. Colleen's out. I love telling people I pass by. 11, 12, 13, 16, 17. Because I know how many are in each column.
Hmm.
All right. So the winner, now you guys are going to have to help. So I hope you're listening up because not everybody has their last names. So it's just coming up as Nicole's iPad 3. So you're here. Hopefully, Dawn, you'll win something. Don't worry. So Nicole, I'll open my chat back up. If you could do me a favor, if you know that that's you on Nicole's iPad 3, if you could drop your first and last name and email address, we will be thrilled to give you
That's amazing.
a $20 store credit with Life. And it's not a name I'm familiar with. So I'm thinking it's maybe somebody from your community or somebody who found us haphazardly. Sometimes that's the hard part. Actually, last night, thankfully, I knew the spelling, even though there wasn't a last name. And I called her up. She's in Oregon. I'm like, Megan, was that you? So that's just, that's the kind of community that we talk about. I have another one, Deanna. She's probably on. We love Deanna dearly. And she always comes up as iPad 52. She doesn't
Oh,
her name on it. So we know it's Deanna whenever we see that. So Nicole on the iPad number 3, if you are there, please drop it in the chat. Call me tomorrow, DM, any which way you can. We'd love to be able to give you that gift. So guys, as we close, like, I don't know, do you feel like there's anything you wanted to get across, anything you wanted to say, anything that we didn't cover? I'm sure there's a million things we didn't cover. Any questions that you have? Like, what do you got for us?
no, for me, I think this was just, it's great. I love this. Be able to like hang out and chat.
Yeah. And it's fun seeing names that I
Yeah,
recognize too, like
me too.
Joy and Sarah. And I think Stephanie. Stephanie, we met at Pick Up Every Stitch again.
It's just
It's
these are the faces and
yeah,
like this is what we love. Is like even if we don't know your last name or like where exactly you live, like just to be able to recognize faces and know like, oh, I remember you from Pick Up Every Stitch, or I remember you from
here
wherever.
or there
Yeah,
or what
and I'm the worst with names, but I'm really good at faces. So
Yeah.
like, and one of our favorite things and like is one of my favorite things is when somebody comes up and they're like, "Oh, hey, how are you? You probably don't remember me, but I'm like, yes, I
yes,
remember. Of
I
course, it's just it's nice to be able
yes,
to have those moments.
it's fun to
Um,
be able to do that. Like,
yeah,
because people don't expect to be remembered sometimes or for us to remember them. So when we
yeah,
do, or we can say hi to them before like they say hi to us when we see them again, to just like kind of surprise them. It's one of our favorite
yeah,
things
I
to
love
do.
that. But when we're eating or walking really fast with our head down, give us a break.
The walk fast, head down, that's like, I just have to hit the restroom.
Yeah,
Like,
or
I'm on
like,
my way, either there or we're getting food. Like, it's one of those
yeah,
things. It's so funny. I sit around, I was like, okay, I was like, I'm just gonna look straight ahead. I can't like, because I get so
I
sidetracked
get
and
so
I'll
sidetracked.
see somebody and wave and I
Mhm.
can't do it. So I have to look either down or straight ahead and just keep
It's
going.
like our version of like avoid eye contact, avoid eye contact. Just
It's funny because in the same thing, like whenever I'm looking at staffing out my booth for an event, I pretty
Mhm.
much call myself useless because I pretty much spend the day squealing and hugging people and
Yep.
saying hello to people and ultimately, really provide absolutely no input, to questions or things that people might have. But that's what we're there for. And, I think especially once COVID was over, right? And then all the people that we would see on here, and then we're starting to connect faces with people that we've talked to. I think that's been the best part of it for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
is to be able to hug people again if you're a hugger, and if you're not, but just even being able to have that face to face conversation.
Oh,
So
for sure.
the easy balance between doing Zoom stuff for the people that we're never going to see in person versus then being able to be back out at events and now you guys are vending and being able to do different things like that. So I again appreciate everybody's comments. I will wholeheartedly admit I know a majority of these people's names that are newer to me are because you brought them here. And I thank you for that. I thank you for your commitment to the community and the podcast that you do. I'm definitely in awe of it. It's not something I yet can find the time, to put into my life based on what I do here. So I feel like I have more of you guys to thank for bringing some new people, hopefully, to me, even though this wasn't about me and it was about you. But that really means a lot to me and sharing some fun times and some information. And I hope we'll be able to continue it. So I hope we'll be
Yes,
Yes.
for sure. And we will definitely make it out to the farm.
I
Yes.
hope we'll be able to get you here to the farm and, kind of roll from there. Now, I asked you guys in text, but you maybe didn't see it. Are we going to see you at Vogue Knitting Live?
We
Or are you
don't know
not
Oh,
yet. We still haven't made a decision on what we're doing that weekend.
I
It's
know.
so hard because again, we're only an hour and a half away by train.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like right there. So we're on the fence. We're on the fence.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple of things coming up this year that we're trying to like, we
Balance.
want to do everything. And the one year that we did everything, it was like way too much.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to see how it would work.
Yes.
Oh, and that's totally a fair assessment. I mean, really, for me, I only have a couple of bigger events that I do these days,
Mhm.
and then intersperse that with llama shows because that's the weird world that I'm in. But yeah, so for us, we've always focused on Vogue Knitting Live. Once we get through the holidays, we
Yeah.
have that. And then February, I take vacation. So I'll be on a beach. And then really, I feel like before you know it, I'm shearing. So I get catapulted into that season. And regardless of what's happening pretty much between April and June, I don't have an opportunity to do anything. I don't get to go to Maryland Sheep and Wool, and that's fine. So yeah, everybody's got different schedules of where we
Yeah.
can
Yep.
fit different things in. So again, for anybody who's new, you can join me on what I call my shear and share tour. And that pretty much is just my way of doing stories and posts and kind of vlogging, if you will, what I'm doing and where I travel. And I'm telling you, I come to a town near you if you're on the East Coast. So that's kind of always fun, to be able to share with that also, which I have to ask just, and then I'll let you guys go. When you said you go an hour away from Bridgeport to where your hospital is, so what town is that? You said Center, Connecticut.
That's in New Britain.
I shear right there.
Oh, fantastic. Let me
Yeah,
know.
so
Yeah.
it's called the New Britain, or the Hungerford Youth Museum, but it's right in New Britain, like Kensington, right? Is
Yeah,
that?
Kensington.
Yeah.
That's the exit I get off of.
Yep. Yeah. There's a cute
That's funny.
little. It's actually it's really been revamped. I mean, it kind of used to look a little dim and dismal, like chain link fence wildlife park, and they've completely redone it. But it's called the Hungerford um, Museum, and it's right in New Britain. So see, I share right there.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Hey,
Yeah,
that's really
right.
funny.
I know.
That's how my whole life revolves around. When somebody's like, if you live in a state in which I shear, I'm like, where? Because I must be there. I mean, I feel
Right.
like kind of like one day my people, my lifers know I said I'm going to do a tour t-shirt, like a music concert. I'm going to do a tour t-shirt with like all the cities that I go to.
That'd be cool. That would be really cool.
It covers, you know, Vermont, New Hampshire, all the way down to southern South Carolina. So it goes pretty far spread. So, but guys, with that, I'm going to let you go. I could go on forever. I cannot thank you enough for
Thank you.
coming in and joining us for this year. Thank you for everybody that has joined us for the program. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year. And of course, for anybody that's new to me, if you ever have any questions, you can always find me on social media. You can find my cell phone number anywhere, I'm sure. You have direct access to me for anything that you like. And I wish you guys well. Maybe you'll take a peek at some of our new people that we've got to the platform. And if I can ever do anything for either of you two, aside from sending you skincare, which I will do, then then please always give a ring, and we're going to get it on the calendar and get you to the front.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
We're there.
Well, thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Have a good night.
So much,
Bye,
guys,
everyone.
for everything and for everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.